After a day of rest, the survivors in an interesting Vuelta Espana are again ready to engage in battle. Isidro Nozal has led for a week and is now ready to take on the absolute role as ONCE team leader. The sprinters are ready too, and will Eric Zabel produce another finish like this one in Zabadell 2 days ago? We will have some of the answers as the Vuelta resumes with stage 11 next on OLN. Days behind us now, a rest day yesterday. The riders in the Tour of Spain have covered more than 1,400 kilometres. They're about to add on 162 kilometres today, and I can tell you they're absolutely flying. Hello everybody, welcome back to our live coverage of the Vuelta Espana. I'm Phil Liggett. No prizes for guessing what these two did on the rest day. They both got their hairs cut. Paul Sherwen on my right and Bob Roll on my left. Now, those 7 days which have gone by really have been a great story for the new Spanish star, Isidro Nozal. He really has become the golden boy of Spanish cycling, and here's how he did it. The fairy tale tour of Isidro Nozal all began with the team time trial in Gijón. 28 kilometres. The ONCE team were favourites and they lived up to their tag. They won the stage. But yet he wasn't in the leader's golden jersey. That was on the shoulders of a teammate. But then came his chance. He joined a breakaway and the breakaway succeeded. He became the third leader of the tour on the team, and he was looking the most solid because he was the first to get time gaps. Of course, the first big test was the individual time trial, and everybody was convinced he wouldn't do well here. Well, he shocked. He not only won the time trial, but he increased his overall lead. Of course, now he proved he could time trial, but could he climb mountains? He faced 3 days in the Pyrenees. Well, the answer was yes, he could. He also learned the art of suffering, but they couldn't get rid of him. He had to take over, even though he appeared to always be working for González de Galdeano. At the summit, he'd suffered, but he was still in the golden jersey. Then came the long climb to the mountaintop finish in Andorra. Roberto Heras attacked him, and so did the others. He marshalled every move while they crashed down behind him. At the top, he'd increased his lead again over his principal rivals. This man has showed now, after 7 days in the golden jersey, he's ready to take it all the way to Madrid. And so he resumes now in that golden leader's jersey with a lead of 1:48 over González de Galdeano. This is our Pacific Life general classification. Manuel Beltran is third. Dario Frigo, still a bit of a dark horse, I think, riding there in fourth place. Roberto Heras completing the top 5, giving US Postal 2 men in the top 5, but they're not sure how to handle the situation yet. Further down, a pre-race favourite Mancebo is in 6th place. Valverde, Rasmussen have both won stages, while Aitor González is beginning to look a changed man these last few days as the defending champion, and Unai Osa completes the top 10 overall. Now, ONCE, it seems to me, so far, haven't done a thing wrong, have they, Bob? And they've got 2 men at the top.
Well, they have the first 2 places on GC, but winning a 3-week bike race is all about the prudent use of resources. They've thrown their men at the front of almost every stage so far. They've controlled all the proceedings. The main beneficiaries have been Igor González de Galdeano and, of course, our leader, Isidro Nozal. We've even seen Isidro Nozal in the golden race leader's jersey going back for water bottles and doing tempo for Igor González de Galdeano, who has not so far demonstrated enough power and finesse and panache to be a protected man. He's been dropped on the hills, and he even lost the time trial to this man, our current leader, Isidro Nozal, who is the man of the Vuelta so far. I think that the exuberance has gotten a little bit the better of the ONCE team, and they're going to have to decide pretty soon who's going to get all of the resources that the team has available to them. I think that Nozal has demonstrated that he's the top guy. He's got the form, he's got the fitness, and he's done absolutely nothing wrong, including help Igor González de Galdeano, and he still leads a bike race and is even increasing his lead as we go along. So if I'm ONCE, I'm throwing everything at Nozal from here on out.
All right, he's got Bob's vote of confidence, so he's bound to win the Tour. Now, Paul, we've often talked throughout the last week about the men from US Postal. They've tried, but they haven't got anything like a stranglehold on this event. But another man we didn't talk about because he lost a lot of time early on, Aitor Gonzalez.
Yeah, but you know, the thing about a man like Aitor Gonzalez, Phil, is you must never forget that he is a former winner of this bike race. And yes, in the first week of bike racing here at the Vuelta a Espana, I didn't think he was going to challenge. But all of a sudden, we got into the Pyrenees, and he was the man who actually went out on the attack and put other people into difficulty. We also, for the first time, saw in his eyes the desire to win this bike race again for a second time. You know, he might be riding for an Italian team, but let's never forget that in 2002, he's the man who won this bike race in the overall standings. He had a fairly quiet Tour of Italy in the early part of the year. He finished 19th overall there. He won himself a stage, and that was in the time trial at the Giro d'Italia. And this man, I think, in the last few days is starting to come back up and look like a favourite for the last couple of days. And in fact, I've got to tell you one thing. Johan Brunel is completely convinced that the two men from Once at the top of the leaderboard are the men who are going to win this bike race. But I think I believe in Bob's prediction that they're doing too much work, and the race is going to change a lot in the last week.
Certainly is, and Brunel, of course, is saying that we won't know the answer till the time trial. That's still 48 hours away. Well, today's the day, and they are absolutely flying. They're over half an hour ahead of schedule, and this is the route they are taking. We're heading away from UTL to Cuenca, which is a pretty familiar route for riders in the Tour of Spain the past few years. It's 162 kilometres. Watch out for that little cobble climb at the end, the Alto del Castillo, the climb up the side of the castle there. 1,120 metres is where we reach. It might stop Pataki winning. Now we can go to live action. 168 of the 188 riders are still in, 30 gone. 2 have gone today, and 8 of the teams are still intact. The first surprise was Igor Astaloa not signing on at the start, bringing Seiko down to only 3 men. Jose Gomez, he's the second retirement on La Barca dos Caf's back team. So they've lost 2 men now as well. Well, as I said, the race was flying. We've caught all the crosswinds, and it has been a very heavy stage today. George Hincapie got himself into a break about 15 minutes ago, and that was a group of 10 riders. They got a little bit of a gap, something like 27 seconds. The field completely splintered in the chase to bring them back. It put Angel Casero, the winner 2 years ago, in desperate trouble. And we're not even certain at this moment whether, in fact, that group with Casero in has even rejoined the main peloton. But everybody is now back together, as I say, running 30 minutes ahead of fastest expected time. There's still plenty of action to come, and, of course, a very nasty climb just before the end of the day. We'll take our first break. See you in a moment. And welcome back, and as you rejoin us, we've just had this attack here from Michael Sandstad, last year's time trial champion of Denmark, and it's a brave man that tries to hold off to the field at these sort of speeds.
Michael Sandstad is a very strong boy, though. He's almost 35 years of age. He's been a great competitor over the years since he was a top track athlete in his own country, and over the last couple of years he has taken part in the Tour de France and gone away in moves like this. And I think he's trying to take advantage of the fact that for the last 25 kilometres or so we've had a very high speed in the front end of the main field, and he's hoping there's going to be a lull in the attacks for the moment and try and build himself up a rather interesting lead before we get into the outskirts of town.
Now, Bob, we've seen a lot of chasing being done by Kelme today. Totally mystifies me as to quite what their plan is.
I think that because the crosswinds were so strong, they wanted to keep Valverde as well as perhaps Oscar Sevilla out of the wind. The best way to do that when it's a very, very fast racing situation is to go on the offensive. They put everybody in the gutter. They actually split the field. It looks like we have a little bit of a breakaway.
I think this is the Angel Casero group. We thought it had rejoined when they stopped the racing, but in fact it looks as though they dropped right off, because you can see way in the distance, in fact, they never did get back. Now, all this happened about 20 minutes ago when the riders hit the crosswinds, and that back group with Casero in, he's apparently not feeling very well, but I've never known a cyclist go off the back when he is feeling well.
That's true, but he has been complaining of problems with his knee over the last couple of days, but he doesn't want to abandon. He's a former winner of this bike race right now, and that's why he's trying to keep tough until he gets to the finish in Madrid. That's the main part of the peloton, and you can see there Michael Sandstad, although he looked as if he was going quite strongly, he's only got about 100 metres off the front end of the main field.
All right, well, back to the front. I always enjoy saying that, as we see Sandstott still trying to ride them off here. Well, if anybody can do it, this man can. He's been a very good time trial rider over the years, but we'll see. Still an awful long way to go, more than 50 kilometres. Don't forget, we stay with live action throughout the working week here on OLN, and tomorrow we come to you live at the usual time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 bright and early in the morning there over in California. And if tomorrow we go down to Albacete, and then that is the eve of the very long time trial where we stay in Albacete for the following day, and that could give us 1 or 2 pointers as to who might win this race. It's 169 kilometres the ride tomorrow from Cuenca. Back with the leader, here he is, and making a very brave choice here with such a long way to go to the finish. We in fact arrive in the finishing town with 17 kilometres still to race. We don't actually pass through the finishing line, but we go very close to it, and we do a circuit which will include the final climb, and we go over the top of that little climb 12 kilometres from the finish.
Well, that was a quick look at the gap, the group off the back end of the main field, and you could see that the team managers in the cars, they were passing up drinks to this group. They're going to be left to their own resources now. They have to try and finish the stage as best they can. But on a stage like this, a short, fast, flat stage, they really do have to be quite careful, because there's a very serious chance that they could find themselves getting eliminated, especially when you bear in mind that this afternoon we're almost 30 minutes faster than the fastest schedule. Oscar Sevilla here looking stronger and stronger as the race goes on, but he certainly is not going to be the winner of the Vuelta a España this year.
Well, this is the area where Oscar Sevilla comes from. He had a tremendous ovation at the start today, and that could be another reason that Kelme are trying to keep this race together in the hope that they might land the winner by the end of the day. But also watch out for Eric Zabel, because he probably will survive at the front over that steep little climb. One man in the lead. We'll take a break. Looking at the riders in the Vuelta a España, and they are eating up the road today at an alarming speed. There's just about an hour of racing left to go now as we head down to Cuenca, and we've got that small climb which will come on what is really a finishing circuit of some 15-16 kilometres. Still one rider away. Well, he's just there now, and we do see this quite often, Paul, but men with time trial mentality seem to just go out front and never realise where the peloton is.
I sometimes wonder about the tactics of Michael Sandstott. I've seen him do this on many occasions. At this level of the sport, it really is a waste of energy to do something like that, just to ride in front of a main field that's cruising along at 50 kilometres an hour with a 50 to 100 metre advantage. And Bob, it's almost like whacking yourself across the head with a rolled up newspaper doing what he's doing.
Well, he seemed to be suffering quite a bit, and when you're producing the wattage he is, and the whole field is chasing just behind you, you have to cut your losses there, go back to the peloton, hope that another break gets organized. But at this point, he's wasting a lot of energy. He'll probably get absorbed before the finale, and it wouldn't surprise me if he got immediately dropped on that last little climb. But he's taking a gamble. He's hoping that some other athletes will come across from the group and then maybe have enough guys to stay away from the finish. Kelme doing the brunt of the work in the finale so far today. I really don't understand that. They have a rider in 7th place, Alejandro Valverde, who's racing very well in this Vuelta a España, won a big mountain stage in the Pyrenees. He's having a great tour so far, and so they're trying to defend him, keep him out of the wind. Sevilla is also feeling a little bit better. His GC plans are absolutely finished. He's lost too much time. Everybody's chasing this man. He seems to be going a little bit slower now, and it won't be long before the whole group catches him. I think he's maybe pulled the plug on this. A little bit of a prudence coming into the pedaling style there of Michael Sandstott. Very strong bike racer. Not only is he the time trial champion, but he's also road champion. There it is. Look over the shoulder, and he'll see the big group coming up on him. Yes, the big train, and they have been going very strongly today. They started out with a series of attacks, but it kept the pace very high, and it stayed that way. We did hit a stretch of crosswind that ripped the peloton apart, and at the moment we do have about 12 riders off the back by about a minute, and it includes Angel Casero, the winner of this race a couple of years ago. Kelme have got themselves back in control at 42.4 kilometres to go, and I reckon they're trying to get Oscar Sevilla home first today, but we will see as they continue. Well, we've had the running of the bulls. Well, this is the riding of the bulls, and believe me, it is pretty hard to say the least, because those animals weigh in excess of 2,000 pounds,
and they can really throw you about. Watch the best cowboys in the world in action, and you check out all of the action on PBR every Saturday and Sunday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, and of course only on OLN. And it looks as though we've got one rider clear here, Pedro Diaz of the Patanina team. They're a headless team because they lost their leader, Jose Pecaroman, who climbed off at the feed a couple of days before the rest day.
Well, not only did they lose him from the Vuelta a Espana, but they also lost him from the team as well, because next year he'll be riding for the Quick-Step Davitamont squad. For the moment, these are just small flurries off the front end of the main field, but there is going to be a big battlefield when we do get into town, because there's a very interesting climb at around about 12 kilometers to go, and I think we will see a fairly interesting split in the main peloton.
Well, as we continue our ride inland here, away from the ocean, we're in the province of Valencia today, and I have to say that the riders themselves are finding it quite undulating, but very good attacking circumstance. And two more riders are agitating at the front. Well, one, and Kelme acting as policeman. They definitely have a plan. We'll take a break. And welcome back to the Tour of Spain. 39 kilometres to go, and there has been a flurry in the last minute or so. And as you can see, scurrying away is a breakaway group. I think, Paul, I caught the sight of Floyd Landis joining that group.
It looks certainly as if he did manage to get into this group, but what a fast race this has been this afternoon. In fact, the first 2 hours of racing, we covered 99 kilometres. That's 61 miles of racing, so it really has been hot and furious since the very start. And the weather conditions too, I think, have leaned towards the fast pace, because we've had a very strong cross tailwind this afternoon, and high temperatures as well in this part of Spain, 27 degrees Celsius, which is pretty much 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But look at the speed of the main field here. They're hammering along at an average of around about 50 kilometres an hour.
Well, Oscar Sevilla's got himself on the back here, and that's why they split the field. A very serious move indeed as they start to go clear. This is the fastest stage ever, 55.176. I don't think we're on that sort of speed. We're just below, but we could be into the 50s, which would make it an exceptionally quick stage indeed. But I'm wondering if this is why Bob Kelme have been working so hard. He knows this countryside better than anybody else in the race.
It seems to be now they had a preconceived plan of attack to get Sevilla up the road. There's a little group just ahead of them. He's with two other riders, both from Spanish team, a Phonak rider and a Jazztel Almeria rider. They have a good chance of getting up into the front, and when Sevilla arrives at the front, he'll have a teammate. Santiago Blanco is the relaxed rider. He won a stage in the Vuelta last year on a very long breakaway. That was a great stage. And when Sevilla gets into the breakaway, I think it's Carlos Garcia Quesada that is his Kelme teammate. Also, the effect is that there's going to be no tempo coming from the peloton until another team gets organized to start to do the chase. Very few teams will be interested in that, except perhaps Kelme, even though no GC contenders are in the breakaway, and the U.S. Postal Team has at least one rider in there that we saw so far. And this is a nature break. When you're going about 60 miles an hour down a hill, it's not that easy to do, so a tremendous amount of skill coming to the other.
I thought there was a rule where you got disqualified if you pushed a rival teammate.
A rival teammate or a rival team?
A rival team. I mean, touche, Bob.
No, not in Spain. No.
Okay. Right,
when you have to go in Spain, you really have to go. It's like the rain in the plane. It stays there.
Well, there's plenty of rain on the plane just then. 36 kilometres then, as Fuentes is where we have reached now. But just look at the pain on the front as we speak, because this has been the race all day today. It's not looking good for a bunch sprint right now, because the riders have been constantly under pressure. This is the breakaway. Santiago Blanco looking over his shoulder, see what's happening. Oscar Sevilla definitely part of the big Kelme plan today, and he is finding his form. Remember, he came to this race with only 4,000 kilometres in his legs, and Bert Grapsch there, the German rider on the Swiss Phonak team.
Well, they all need to get back together if they want to survive, because on the front end of the main field, they really are starting to hot it up. This is the front end of the bike race at the moment. This is the leading group, and that group of Oscar Sevilla is trying to catch them up right now. The whole of the race, though, is separated by around about 30 seconds. This is the chase group coming across here with Sevilla. Bert Grapsch is in there as well, and Blanco, as they went through the second sprint point of the day at Fuentes. And strangely enough, there's a bike rider in this race called Fuentes. He rides for Seiko, and he's not got very many teammates left, has he?
He's only got two. It's been a rough old day for him, but there is definite spaces now here. This is the sprint, 36 kilometres to go here at Fuentes. And as you can see now, big decisions have got to be made because Oscar Sevilla is in angry mood, and way behind his old rival of a couple of years ago, Angel Casero, who won that stage, is also in a little bit of trouble. He's just tagged on here. This is Angel Casero to the right of our picture now. We'll take another break and come back soon. And welcome back. On the right, 3 chasers, which is Oscar Sevilla, still trying to repair the damage by this attack containing Floyd Landis. They are the leaders on the left, little David Echevarria in the Euskaltel colours there. At the bottom of our screen, it looks as though the Once boys are going to have to start working very, very hard here, and because there is a little bit of danger on the horizon.
Certainly is rather a confusing situation for anybody in the breakaway right now. They're actually trying to get themselves organised, and if they get themselves organised into one large, solid, workman-like group, they've got a very good chance here of outfoxing the sprinters on an afternoon like this. Once coming to the front to control the front end of the main peloton. That is their job. They are the team of the leaders, and of course the man who's high up in the overall classification as well, Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. And it's amazing to me, Bob, when we talk about Team Once still not giving complete and utter confidence to the man in their team, Isidro Nozal. But we've seen this happen so many times in the Tour of Spain before, as we go back to this small group, 3 men trying to get across to the leading group of around about 15 riders. And what a great ride by Oscar Sevilla there in the lime green shorts of Team Kelme. He really wants to do something today. He's riding into home territory. He was actually born in Albacete, where we're going down to tomorrow, but this is a tough ride to bridge a gap like this at 50 kilometers an hour.
He's doing a great ride right now, coming out of the peloton while they were chasing flat out. This breakaway is not waiting around. 12, 13 guys in the break. These 3 riders trying to get across. Grapch and Santiago Blanco doing a little bit of the work, but the brunt of it being done by Oscar Sevilla, who is flying across the gap there. He must certainly be coming into form. Wouldn't be surprised to see him start attacking big time in the 2 mountain stages to come. La Pradera looks like they're going to get on, and Sierra Nevada in a few days' time.
Super effort this by these 3, and as the boys have said, the big work being done by Oscar there. He's finding his legs. It's taken him a while after he repairs a very poor season of injury. 4,000 kilometres, that's all he'd done before he started this race, so I'm not surprised he struggled in that first opening week, but now he really does seem to be finding his legs. Great chase, he's joined the leaders, he clearly has a plan today, and so far it's working out.
Well, he wouldn't have had this sort of freedom if he'd been high up in the overall classification, and certainly it shows that he's a true champion, trying to take advantage of the fact that he's not going to be a marked man in this year's Vuelta a España. He's lost too much time already, but he certainly wants to try and get some glory for his team, and he also wants to ride well in his own countryside as well. He knows these roads. It's all part of his training program, but this is a difficult group to control. There's a large number of riders here, and they still only have 35 seconds over the main field, and I'm surprised, Bob, to see riders still desiring to launch themselves off the front one by one.
Absolutely. They're trying to get up the road. It's a pretty big group here in the finale, a little bit unmanageable. I'm sure these riders would prefer if there was a few less. There's a couple of Kelme riders now in the front. Garcia Quesada's been joined by his team captain, Oscar Sevilla, who's riding better and better. These riders are just off the front of the front breakaway. I think it'll come together, split apart, come together, and we'll just have to see from the peloton who's making all the chasing. If we start to see the Fossa Bortolo riders, who I didn't see any in the breakaway, start to do big tempo for their man, Alessandro Pataki, who lost the sprint the day before the rest day to Eric Zabel. Here's a finish line. A little bit of trouble with the transmission there. Back out on the roads now. It looks like a couple of CSC riders. We'll have to see if they've gone off the front of the breakaway or they are behind the peloton there. We saw Angel Casero get back into the front group just before that last sprint with 36 kilometers to go. That must have been during the one moment of hesitation throughout the stage. It wouldn't surprise me if Sansad and Brun had been gone off the front. Sansad very strong today, and it's a very exciting finale we have brewing today.
Yeah, Sansad and Brun appear to be chasing the breakaways. This is camera 2. Which goes up with the second group on the road, but there's some good riders up there now. Carsten Kroon, Scarponi as well. Now, if you're missing any of the stages of the Vuelta, then always catch up with us every Thursday night. You can tune in to OLN and see Summer Sports Zone, which will of course feature highlights, news and results from not just the Vuelta, also the domestic and the international road cycling, and of course mountain biking. You can check the programme out every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. Well, this is developing into a most interesting day. There are the two riders just down there ahead of the peloton. They're chasing a group which contains Floyd Landis, Carlos Garcia, David Echeverria, Carsten Kroons, the man who started the move, Pedro Diaz, and Michele Scarponi. They are some of the riders. We've got plenty more of them coming too. We know that, in fact, in there is Angelo Lopez Boselli, a rider who's been in a couple of breaks today, and also one or two others which we'll give you as we know who they are. But the peloton looks as though they're getting organised. Little flick of the right arm there from Pradera to call through the troops. The chase is very much on, but time is beginning to run out. We'll take another short break. And welcome back. We're looking down at the main field here as they continue to work out how they're going to trap the dozen or more riders who have now gone away by half a minute at 26 kilometres to go. They've swept up the two in between, the CSC riders, Brun and Sandstad. Now they've got to concentrate on this breakaway. Pedro Diaz is the rider tagged onto the back of the leaders. He was the man that started it. There's the result we saw down at Fuentes. Santos Gonzalez getting it, and Zabaya and Silva in third place. And he's a rider we haven't seen since this race began.
Certainly not. There's one or two riders you hardly ever speak about in a whole three-week bike race. This is an interesting move right now. It seems as if everybody is, in fact, starting to work quite well in this leading group. We've seen Santos Gonzalez in the group, and also, I'm pretty sure I saw up there as well, Michele Scarponi. Now, that is a dangerous man to be in a group like this, because he's, in fact, only 12th in the overall classification, just 4 minutes behind. So that puts a bit of pressure on Team Once, which is why, once again, they have to do the bulk of the work on the front end of the main field. And just to come back to what Bob said very early on in the program, I find it amazing to see Team Once doing all of the work on situations like this, where really they should sit back and calculate how they use their efforts, because to win a three-week bike race you have to make efforts at specific times, not every day like this, because you end up having that accumulative fatigue, which at the end of 3 weeks, in the last 3 or 4 days, somewhere along the line you have to pay the bill.
And also the riders that are doing all of this teamwork, they get a little bit of bad morale, because they know each day when they wake up, no matter how sore their legs are, no matter how tired or beaten, battered or bruised they are, they're going to have to do all the tempo. It's very tough to face each day in an almost 1 month long contest when you know that your team director is going to have you on the front chasing every single move. Of course, if there is a rider in the top 10 on GC, that's different. But 12th, you're going all the way down to about 15 minutes behind at this point in the bike race. So it's not entirely a great idea. You want to keep it steady, perhaps, the gap. But you could let it open up a little bit like right now if you're Team Once, and then hope that one of the sprinters teams like Telecom, perhaps, or Fossil Bortolo of Alessandro Patacchi come through and do the finale. They don't have a long ways to go, but they've already been pulling very, very hard throughout the day. One way, they've kept Nozal and Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano out of trouble, but at the same time, they're using a lot of their resources that they will need for another 10 days.
Well, looking down at the peloton, they must be getting a little bit concerned by this breakaway. Nobody today is going to alter the destiny of the golden jersey, but of course there are some riders up there gaining time that could use that to good effect perhaps in the next couple of days, especially with the time trial coming up. And Once would be unwise to take too many risks, but they do seem to be using a lot of energy.
Well, it's interesting when you see the gap now starting to stretch out to 50 seconds. It's interesting the renaissance, really, of Aitor Gonzalez in the last couple of days of this bike race, and his own teammate Dario Frigo, because those riders, they've hardly had to use their teams an awful lot to keep themselves high up in the overall classification. Neither has the US Postal Service, apart from working in the defensive to keep Roberto Heras to the front end of the main field. And I think the interesting thing about Aitor Gonzalez is he's actually appearing to be stronger as this bike race goes on. And the thing that I've always found strange, Bob, about the Vuelta a Espana is it's completely different to the Tour de France, where we usually only see one leader in a team. But in the Tour of Spain, on many occasions, we've seen a rivalry being created by the fact that there are two men quite often on the team who can be regarded as leaders. I mean, in the past we've had the big battles of Jalabert and Zula, we've had Alano and Jimenez. Last year we had Sevilla and Gonzalez on the same team, and I wonder, as we get closer towards the victory, if there will be some infighting between Nozal and Igor Gonzalez de Galliano.
Well, Nozal has revealed himself to be a real genuine character. I don't think he would ever go against team orders, and if it was to whatever do any help that he was capable of for Igor Gonzalez de Galliano, I'm sure he would do it. He doesn't seem like the type of man to me that would have a lot of jealous intentions going into it. You never know, though, that leader's jersey in a Grand Tour becomes pretty precious after you've done so much work to defend it. And he's also starting to ride so very well in defense of that jersey. You never know what might happen. And maybe a little bit of a rivalry will start to develop between those two. But at this point, it doesn't seem like Nozal has any intentions except to do exactly what the team orders are.
Well, that banner there was 20 kilometers to go, 12 miles of racing. We'll get a very accurate time check right now with the yellow jersey of Team Once on the front end of the main field. We're going into the finishing town of Cuenca today for the 10th time in the Vuelta Espana history. And in fact, last time it came here, the winner was Filippo Simeoni, who's actually in the bike race here. He rides for Domina Vacanze.
So this is the field, still trying to hunt them down, and the gap is beginning to be prized open. This could be a very, very serious situation here. As we go under the banner here, 20 kilometers to go. It's going to be just about what it was, about 2 kilometers back, 50 seconds, slightly more. They're still opening it up. 51 seconds to go. And 20 kilometers left to ride. Not an easy 20 kilometers either, because we've got that little climb which comes at around 12 kilometers from the finish. And as you rejoin us now, the aftermath here, the fall on the roundabout by Gorka Gerikagotia from the Euskaltel team. Just didn't make the roundabout, and there's also a rider being pushed off there from Domina Vacanze, and one rider here extremely annoyed with himself, and that looks to me as though it's Bingen Fernandez, the Spanish rider from Cofidis, also down in that shunt. We didn't actually see the crash, we just saw the remnants of it, but 3 riders have gone down at least in that nasty crash. Now, what's the number on that bike that they're trying to take away? It looks as though it was David Miller's bike, number 41, but it must be 46, I would think.
Well, back to the action at the front end of the main field here. We're actually inside the town now of Cuenca. We go not very far away from the finishing line, but in fact the riders now facing around about a 15-kilometer circuit. I think they just went under the hotspot sprint banner, that banner just a little further back there. We missed that because of all the action at the back end of the main field, and that will have been the hotspot sprint at 145 kilometers covered. That puts them around about 4 kilometers away from the summit of this very difficult final climb of the day, the Alto de Castillo. In fact, it's a difficult climb because of the fact that there are an awful lot of cobblestones, and I remember a couple of years ago there was a Banesto rider in the lead at this point, and he actually crashed, got himself back into the main field and crashed again.
Now, we believe there are 14 riders in that breakaway. I say believe because our cameras don't seem to be concentrating on them at all, and they're out of our control because this is Spanish television who are our hosts today. But we believe there are 14 riders up there, and it includes Floyd Landis of US Postal. Oscar Sevilla got across the gap with Santiago Blanco and Bert Grabsch. Santos Gonzalez and Constantine Zabaya is also up there. Torsten Heichmann, Renato Silva from MSS, Scarponi. Pedro Diaz was the man who started the move, and he must have been quite pleased when he saw this lot come around him. And Carsten Krohn, David Echeverria, Carlos Garcia, and Angelo Lope Boselli, a name I've never heard of. He's also there. There's the result of the sprint there with Diaz, Heichmann and Silva in that order.
Well, I think this is rather important to look at the front end of the main field right now, because you can see everybody taking the sprint to the bottom of the climb, Bob, as if it's almost the sprint for the end of the race. It is so important with a small climb like this towards the end of a stage, when all of the big contenders for the overall victory know that there could be a split even on such a small climb, because of the fact that it's very close to the finish, and that's why they want to try and get themselves to the bottom of that climb in the first 10 or 15 places. Once seem to be a little bit balked there as we start the climb with the leaders, and there you can see what a difficult road surface these riders will be facing up to.
Very narrow roads here in the town of the finishing town. This is a very steep little climb with some rough surface on it. I think we're going to see some big attacks in the breakaway, and we'll have to see who can stay in the front. You can see there's a smooth bit of pavement right in the middle, and there's cobbles on either side. That's exactly where you want to be. And it looks like the rider from the Domina Vacanze team in the breakaway has gotten that. Santos Gonzalez, yes indeed it is Domina Vacanze, and he is almost crashed on that corner, going so fast around there, And that's exactly why you want your team boss to be at the very front of the group. If there's anything like that happens in the peloton, it's going to be absolute madness for the people following. It's easy to open a gap this close to the finish, but almost impossible to. Almost crashed into our camera motorbike there. It's very competitive now in the breakaway. Everyone's attacking, and I think it's going to split up a little bit here just before the finish. So important to be very close to the front, and here comes the peloton to the bottom of this very sharp corner here. Let's hope everybody can get through it. It's so close to the finish. If any gaps open it up, it's so very hard to close them down.
Well, they try and organize themselves over the top of the climb, but from the top of the climb there are only 12 kilometers to go down to the finish. And just to get in quickly, this town here of Cuenca, in fact, is the hometown, the birthplace of Le man Luis Ocaña, who was a great competitor, one of the first men to put Eddie Merckx into difficulty. Santos Gonzalez, though, is looking to try and get himself the win here this afternoon, but you can see the main field, a lot of riders sitting up and leaving it up to the cruise down towards the finishing line right now.
Well, there are in fact 15 riders in that leading group, and the one man we didn't know was there was the man that just shouted at our television cameraman. I still don't know who it was, but I think it might have been Gustavo Otero, the leader there of La Barca. But that completes our 15 men at the front. This rider now trying to break their spirit here. This is a good ride by Santos Gonzalez. He's a quality performer, and he's trying to break the field up on what is, for many of them, the last chance before the sprinters take control. This is a beautiful part of town here, the old castle, and the riders now on the way up here. It's a long climb. It's a third category preem, don't forget, for the points of the day. Huge effort by Santos on the climb, found the easiest route up, still is seeking the smooth roads, and still is holding off the rest of that breakaway.
Let's see what Oscar Sevilla can do from the break. He made a huge effort to get across to the breakaway. Now he has to finalize it. He has to get up to Santos Gonzalez if he's going to have a chance to win the stage.
A bit further back here, Paul, to the Once team. They're now really going to make a serious move to close this down.
They're going to have a hard time closing down 50 seconds on a man like Santos Gonzalez. Let's not forget he was actually selected a couple of years ago to go to the World Championships for Spain in the individual time trial. So he's the kind of rider who can ride at this speed for an awful long time. But these are fabulous pictures coming from the heart of Spain right now as we look at Once in complete control on the front end of the main field. They're trying to make sure that nobody launches an attack. And there is the golden jersey sitting in the first 4 or 5 places. It's amazing how the golden jersey or leader's jersey in any stage race can change the way a rider holds himself to the front end of a peloton. 49 seconds the gap between Santos Gonzalez and the main field right now, and once he gets over the summit of this climb he'll be facing 12 kilometers to the finish, and unfortunately for him it's not 12 kilometers downhill, it's 2 or 3 and then a very long flat section to the finishing line.
It'll be tough, but you've got to take your chance sometimes, and he's taken his at the best possible moment. The orange jersey there at the King of the Mountains, Felix Cardenas, also in the line. The golden jersey is right there too, and it's looking now as though they will hold this race together, at least for the race for the golden jersey. Sorry about the old picture shake-up, but I've got a feeling our equipment on the back of those motorbikes are not having a good ride on the cobblestones at all. As we look at Santos Gonzalez, still to try and hold off a breakaway of 14 chasing riders, and about 40 seconds, 50 seconds at the most, back to the group containing the golden jersey. And it looks like this is David Echeverria, who's climbed his way back up alongside him. Most remarkable man. He would never give up, little David Echeverria, and now he's got himself up alongside Santos Gonzalez.
He's a good bike rider, David Echeverria. We've seen him win stages at the Tour de France, and we've seen him crash out of the Tour de France by crashing into a barrier on one of the stages. And the funny thing is, his nickname in the French peloton is Extra Barrier, because it's just so difficult sometimes to say Echeverria. But he is an aggressive bike rider. He always looks for the move, and he's come straight by Santos Gonzalez there as he heads up towards the summit of the climb. He's not worried about points in the King of the Mountains competition right now. What he's worried about is surviving off the front end of the main field, because he knows in that main field they will be coming up this climb 2 or 3 kilometers an hour faster than them. And this climb, I think, Bob, is starting to come back to me, because I think on the descent it was actually Santiago Blanca who crashed on the descent a couple of years ago while he was actually leading the bike race.
It seems as if Gonzalez and Echeverria still have 49 seconds. That's all the way back to the peloton. We'll have to see if this Phonak rider can get across. Remember, there's still 12 riders or so in between our first 2 and this group right here on the road. Hopefully we'll get some pictures to them, but it might be just one one rider coming across time and time again. Here's some of the riders in the breakaway being caught. It's on in the finale right now.
The blue jersey was going off the front there, and today the blue jersey as leader of the combine classification is being worn by Alejandro Valverde, the young Kelme rider, 23 years of age. He's proved that he can win at the top of some of the big mountains, but right now he's looking for the move on a stage like this, which is pretty remarkable.
Well, we've seen at least 4 of the riders come back there. Grabs has come back, and so too has Silva. And I think Lopeb Soselli has also come back there for Cofidis. So they've been wiped out one by one. These are the 2 leaders. And very shortly, they are going to be the only 2 riders left out front from what is a very, very vigorous fighting peloton today. There they are. They're regrouping at the front to chase 2 men. We'll take a break. And welcome back, where we are hearing from the race that Roberto Heras has fallen, but we've seen no pictures and no confirmation, so we'll have to work that one out as we go along. But one thing is for sure, we're being treated again to a desperate scrap for the finish.
Certainly are, and there's several riders interspersed between the leading 2 and the main field here right now, but there's all action in the front of the main field. It's very difficult to bring the live pictures here from the roads of the Vuelta a Espana. That's why we get a little bit of picture break as we go through the forested area here right now. At the front of the group of leading contenders, Once are doing an awful lot of pacemaking. The golden jersey is in there, quite safe and comfortable for the moment. Isidro Nozal. They are now looking at the 2 leaders, David Echeverria on the back in the orange jersey, Santos Gonzalez in the white jersey with the zebra stripes on of Domino Vacance, and their advantage over the chasing peloton right now is just 39 seconds. But there is a group in between which is starting to form.
Yes, looking down, we appear to have 5 riders trying to get across here at the moment.
One of those is Valverde. In fact, he attacked earlier on, so he's looking for the win here this afternoon. He's proving to be certainly the new revelation, the new guard of Spanish cycling. At just 23 years of age, he's already given Kelme a stage victory here at the Vuelta a Espana, and that was at the summit of a very big high mountain, the Port d'Envalira. But they have a lot of confidence in this young man, because not only can he climb, but he can also sprint pretty well too.
Yes, and don't let's forget that he is sitting in 7th place overall here, 3:57 off the golden jersey. Even a few seconds will at least strike a psychological blow if he can stay away to the finish, and it's Telecom doing most of the riding. Let's have a look at the overall classification just to remind ourselves. There are the top 6. Valverde sits in 7th, and 1:48 is a nice buffer for Nozal, because that's to his teammate. 2:01 is the time gap he'll be most concerned about.
Looked like 8 kilometers to go there, and we're now starting the still rather precarious descent into the outskirts of Cuenca, and it would indicate to me, if Telecom are riding so hard on the front end of the main field, that Eric Zabel must still be in that very large group. Bob and I had said at the start of the day that we thought the finishing circuit today would be the kind of circuit that Eric Zabel could get around, but it might be just a little bit too big for Alessandro Petacchi, because just like Mario Cipollini, he seems to have an aversion to going uphill fast.
Well, actually, I think a Telecom boy has made that split, but we'll confirm it. Our camera's having difficulty today getting down amongst the riders, so we're not getting any information into who is in that chase group, except we are certain that Alejandro Valverde was the man who started it, and then 4 riders have bridged across to it. No problems with the leaders. We have a camera alongside them. Santos Gonzalez, who was passed just before the summit of the climb by David Echeverria. He pinched the mountain points, but fortunately for David, Gonzalez has hung on, and as a result they're making a very good tandem right now at 7 kilometers to go, Bob. 6 kilometers says there.
Well, these 2 bike racers are not shirking any of their responsibility either. They're working very well together. You can see on this twisting descent that a small group like the 2 in front that we have, they won't lose that much time as they get down to this hill. We'll just have to see how far it is on the flat roads before the finish line. They have a very good chance of staying away, and David Echeverria is a fair sprinter himself in a little group like this, so look for Euskaltel Euskadi to perhaps add to their total, especially if they can hold off the chasing group here, led by the Telecom duo right now. And it must be that Zabel has gotten himself into the front here. He's been able to hold on that very steep cobbled climb, so they're chasing hard. If, of course, Petacchi's not there, Zabel is there, and they catch on before the finish, Zabel have a great chance to win another stage, add to his one from before the rest day, the day before yesterday.
Well, they print the kilometres to go for only those with extremely good eyesight in the Tour of Spain, because I couldn't see whether that was 5 or 6, but it looks like it's 5 as we pass under the banner. 3 miles left to race, a lot of it downhill before we swing into town here. There are 5 riders down there. We're only guessing as to them because we're not seeing pictures, but the way Telecom are chasing, they've got great confidence here. And it looks like 6 kilometres to me on that banner, but we'll find as we get down the road. Certainly Heikman here is driving that race along for Telecom. These 2 boys are doing extremely well to hold off those chasing 5.
2 of them working well together at all times to just make sure they can conserve some of their advantage by the time they get to the bottom of this descent. It's a fairly technical descent as well, and these 2 riders have really handled it well, using all of the row, cutting across to the apex, keeping their corners nice and tight, making sure they don't lose anything at all in their momentum as they come down this big mountain. But you mustn't forget the fact that Santos Gonzalez is a very good individual time trialist. In fact, in the Sydney Olympics, he represented Spain in the time trial and got himself an 8th place there. So he will work as hard as possible up until the last kilometre or so, and then I think he'll start to worry about the position of David Echevarria, who for me has got the best acceleration of the 2, but they may well still get caught by the 5 chasers who are going to get picked up by the bunch right now under the guidance there of Team Telecom. And there's the 5 kilometre to go banner.
All comes right in the end, you see it. 5 kilometres to go now. 2 riders are clear. Now there is a Telecom rider in that breakaway, and he's sitting on the tail and doing no work whatsoever. So clearly Zabel is in that group, and at last we get a chance to have a look at the leaders here, so be it briefly. That's Floyd Landis in the breakaway there, so we didn't know Floyd had bridged again into his second big move of the race as they come around the corner. 4 or 5 up now. You don't think it's Floyd, Bob?
Yes, absolutely. That was Floyd Landis, but I think he stayed off the front over the top of the climb and did a very good descent there while some of the riders were getting absorbed from the breakaway. And they were chasing these 2 throughout the descent. Now they only have, now it's down to 14 seconds. A huge chase being done by the Telecom team in the peloton. I think we're going to see a regrouping, but there are definitely some gaps in the field. Not more than 40 guys left in the front right now. Some will probably catch up on the descent if any of our GC are caught behind on that climb, and if they had any problems on the descent, well, they're going to lose some time today. Very, very hard chase because these 2 riders are still up in the front. They have a chance to stay away, but only if the tempo comes down a little bit from the very hard chase being done by the riders from Telecom.
4 kilometres to go. These boys are hanging off the front. We've swept up the 5 intermediaries. They're back in the pack now. They're trying to set this up for Eric Zabel as far as Telecom are concerned. We have not seen the Fassa boys here, and maybe that hill has destroyed the hopes of Alessandro Patacchi today.
Well, I would have thought that Alessandro Patacchi would have had an aversion to try to get over that climb. He certainly doesn't like them. There you can just see, I just caught a glimpse there of the white jersey with the German flag on it. That is Eric Zabel, champion of his country and champion of the sprint a couple of days ago before the rest day. He will be setting himself up now to try and get win number 2. That's the great thing about Zabel when you compare him to the pure sprinters with the speed of men like Alessandro Patacchi. He is a fighter. He's a real player when it comes to stages like this, and he's one of the few sprinters. He reminds me a lot of Sean Kelly. He's able to get over the big mountains, and he's still got that sprint left towards the end.
Absolutely. We must never forget that Sean Kelly actually won this race when he was considered to be more a sprinter than a winner of a Grand Tour, but he has been placed in the first 4 in the Tour de France as well. So as we look now at these riders here trying to bridge the gap, terrific work being done by Telecom in the service of their leader. They've still got to sort out these 2 who are flying down this hill, Bob, leaving some skin on the barriers almost there.
Absolutely. Echevarria he's taking every chance possible, using the whole road all the way to the barrier there. Santos Gonzalez did well to stay on his wheel going through that corner. They're just right in front of the Telecom team. When you have a rider of the quality of Eric Zabel on your team, you can do incredible things as a domestique on the front of the peloton. You can close gaps before the finish line. You know that your man stands a great chance to win. 2 kilometers to go.
Well, they're taking all kinds of risks to stay off the front, but they're also taking big risks in the main field right now because Team Telecom don't have the full locomotive on the front here right now. But as Bob says, even the 1 man left on the front there in the pink jersey for Telecom, he will be just pulling himself inside out to try and grab those riders in front. You can see them now. It's down to about 45 metres. Oh, and this is a dodgy little corner, and most of the front end of the main field have got round there safely. But the man from Telecom, I think he's just popped and he's sliding down. He's going to look to see the position of Eric Zabel. Zabel may well find this a very complicated sprint. Echevarria's got about 20 metres advantage there over Santos Gonzalez. And the main field is not really very far behind.
Desperate, looking for the red flag. Have they timed the catch to their absolute perfection yet again, the Prof Peloton? Because Echevarria is now so excited he's even left Santos Gonzalez, who refuses to be left. He's fighting his way back, Bob.
He needs that wheel if he's going to have a chance to win this bike race. Santos Gonzalez needs to drop him because he's a time trialist. He's not a sprinter. Echevarria needs to get on that wheel, and they need to work together. 1 kilometer to go. This is a dogfight. Let's see where the peloton is. They're going to come into view in just a moment. Big effort, though. Great descent by Echevarria. Santos Gonzalez did well. Now Echevarria has got to use his patience. You cannot make a mistake. Let Santos Gonzalez lead it out, and then hopefully you come around before the peloton catches you.
We are into the last 600 metres or so. It is desperate, but there is a possibility. It's ruined all the tactics here of the riders in front. They've got to go, and they're going to be swept up as they come to the run-in, because Echevarria is still seeking wheels to follow, and it's too late. He's got to make the move because they've got him, and they've tagged on to the back. And also, I think, there is Alessandro Patacchi here as they start to head down towards the finish now. Zabel is in, looking out, can't see him at the moment. Over to the right of our picture, Eric Zabel, as they try now to launch the attack to the finish. Zabel has got himself in. George Hincapie is mixing it too as they wait for the move, and Echevarria has tried again. Zabel is through the middle. They've all opened up for the big sprinter from Germany. You won't believe this as Van Gulen tries to take him on, but as he comes to line, an extra kick by Zabel is required, and it's going to go to the photo, and I think it's probably Van Gulen there who was right on the line. It could have been Tom Bonen. He's tall enough to have been Tom Bonen, and if it was Tom Bonen, I would put my bet he might have taken it on the line, Paul, but it was extremely tight in the end. Here we go. Let's have a look now. Zabel may have just burst out too soon, but did he? Here comes the rider from Quick Step, big enough to be Tom Bonen. Zabel has won it. Zabel has taken win number 2.
He's a great bike rider, Eric Zabel. He's a tough competitor. He will fight through any kind of gap. He saw what was happening in the last 200 or 300 meters there, and he saw just exactly what he had to do. He could feel the pressure of everybody coming up through the outside, and he went for a very long sprint. A lot of riders, though, have lost time, and we'll have to look at the results very carefully tonight, Phil, to see whether Roberto Heras actually was involved in a crash. We're looking at around about 55, 56 seconds so far, and it'll be interesting to see just exactly who was involved in that crash. There are 1 or 2 US Postal riders towards the front end of the group there.
1 minute gap, looking down there. That I don't think he's harassed there. No, I don't think. Well, we'll have to wait and see. The judges will spot him when they get the transponders, but there's the sprint finish for you. Perfectly judged just by Eric Zabel, his 13th win of the year, and getting the better over looks like to be Tom Bonen of the Quick Step team, who came with a good rush towards the end. So Eric has now got 2 wins in the Vuelta, taking his grand total to 5 over the years. But he'll appreciate this one because his team did a terrific job chasing down the remnants of that breakaway towards the end. One man they had in the breakaway didn't do anything. He sat at the back hoping to see the arrival of the team captain, and he got his wish. The champion of Germany is all of a sudden having a wonderful tour of Spain. 5 victories now to add to the 12 wins he has in the Tour de France. He hasn't got any wins in the Giro d'Italia. I'm not even sure he's taken part in that race, to be absolutely honest with you. There's the sprint again from above it. It'll be probably Zabaya or somebody like that from Kelme fading away as Angel Edo comes up there into 3rd slot. But on the line, no doubt about the winner. It looked good from the front. It was pretty clear cut from the back and from the side. So the champion of Germany flexes his legs. He says even at 33 there's so many good young sprinters coming along, and one surely is Tom Bonen for the future. So Eric has to use now all of his experience to keep winning the bike races. So Zabel first, 2nd Tom Bonen, 3rd will be Angel Edo as we look further down the field there. Anyway, we haven't finished yet. We'll come back to the Vuelta Espana and we'll watch the presentation, so don't go too far away. We'll just take a break. And welcome back. Well, we've just seen Erik Zabel snatch his second win in as many days, because yesterday it was a rest day, and we think that the victory now means that he will probably get the leader of the points competition, Paul, which he won last year.
He certainly did. He's a very tough competitor, Erik Zabel. You know, the incredible thing about him is he's one of the sprinters who's able to drag his body over the climbs toward the end of a race like that, and that's really what gave him the advantage over a man like Alessandro Petacchi. But he didn't panic either, you know. He was just coming up to the end. He was waiting for the sprint to start. No teammates around him here at this point, and he knew this was the moment he had to go. But watch out for Tom Boonen there in the blue and white jersey of Quick-Step. He's been threatening over the last few days, and he got himself very close to winning. But to outfox the old master himself, you've got to get out of bed very early indeed. And Boonen, I think, very upset to lose in the photo finish there. But when we get the side shot here, you can see Erik Zabel was always in control and lunging the bike with the experience of a very good track rider. That push, by the way, with the handlebars can give you up to 1.5 meters advantage.
We only gave him less than half a wheel there, Bob.
Unbelievably close. Erik Zabel, you gotta love a rider like this. His teammates did a desperate chase when they realized he was still inside the main group, the front group there, even though it had split up. I think maybe 50 riders at the most were left at the front of the bike race. 100 men dropped. Erik Zabel, the fastest man in the race the last few days, still in the front.
And your man nowhere to be seen.
Petacchi?
Yes.
No. He won't be involving himself in climbs at
Mind
speed
you, my
like
man's
that
not doing so well, is he?
Well,
David Miller, he's not doing so well.
He was there. He was right there, Phil.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
Erik
but
Zabel, his teammates did all the tempo, and he paid their efforts off with a great stage win today.
Well, don't count out Bob's man for tomorrow, because on the road down to Albacete, it's a very flat course. There are no hills out on the course tomorrow. It will be very fast, and Petacchi will now be looking to try and get himself win number 3 at the Vuelta a Espana. But what a magnificent backdrop this small town of Cuenca was for the stage race today. And what I think is more incredible is this young rider Isidro Nozal, who was just about 26 years of age, was not fazed at all by those attacks towards the end. He played a very good defensive role. He was always at the front end of the main field, and I only hope that Manolo Sainz can come to his senses over the next couple of days and say, okay guys, we're going to give this young man everything. We're going to back him to the hilt, because Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano certainly hasn't proved anything at all to us that he is a man capable of winning. And I think Igor Gonzalez de Galdeano is quite possibly the kind of rider who's going to crack when we go into the next mountain range. But there's no worry about today. Look at that. As Bob said, 30 riders in that leading group, and there's Erik Zabel.
And there's the result. 101 miles today in 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now that's bike racing for you. And Tom Boonen just being beaten by a quarter of a wheel on the line. Angel Edo of Spain getting in there in 3rd place, Valverde 4th, and Gorka Gonzalez in 5th. That's as the camera picked them out. But we are very pleased to say that Roberto Heras, their first reporter, he fell, is finishing with this group. George Hincapie sprinting it out, but further back is Heras. He's listed in the group in the finishing bunch here. Aito Gonzalez, the white helmet and the white jersey in the centre of our picture, taking part in the sprints here and doing very, very well to get near the sharp end. And on the right there, the golden jersey of Nozal. There's no time bonuses in the Tour of Spain. That makes it different to the other 2 Grand Tours. So he's only got to finish in the pack to receive the same time and lose none. And that's what he's done today. We'll find out overnight, of course, if any big names did finish in the rear groups. But we know that Casera did, but he's no longer a factor in this year's Vuelta a España. Happy smiles for a man we know very well, Erik Zabel, and he loves every day he wins like it was the first victory of his career. He really is a wonderful bike rider. He says there are so many young fast sprinters coming up now, but he has one advantage, and that's experience of a man who's won 179 bike races as a professional. And of course, Bobby won the points competition here last year.
He is defending points champion from last year's Vuelta a España. He's just moved into the lead there. And Petacchi himself has said he really wants to get to Madrid and contest the points jersey all the way to the end. So we're going to have a great battle for that in the Tour de France. That wasn't decided until the last day of the bike race. We might see a similar situation here in the Vuelta a España. Tom Bonen's proving to be very fast. He's been up there in all of the sprints so far and just barely losing out to Eric Zabel, an inspired ride by the German champion, and he's so disappointed there. He knew that that might be his best chance to win a stage of a Grand Tour, but you got to hand it to Eric Zabel. His teammates did the work, and he put the finishing touches on a masterful stage today in the Vuelta a España.
Well, as we continue to look out briefly there across this beautiful old city, we're now looking at the King of the Mountains jersey. No problems today for Felix Cardenas of Colombia and the La Barca team, because there was only that little climb towards the end. Little, but of course it hurt the peloton when they hit it at 50 kilometres an hour. But for him, there wasn't any need to worry about the points. He's still got plenty of attacking to do as we go further around Spain. Of course, we've still got the Pedera climb to finish on top of in a few days' time. I'm sure we'll see more of him then, and maybe that'll be the next opportunity to tackle the golden jersey. Zabel then, the stage winner, as we show you the result again from Tom Bonen. It won't be long before Tom wins something very, very big. He is a superb, classy young bike rider. Angel Edo, well, he's been around a long time now. He's just lacking that little bit of finish that gives him the big wins, although he's having his usual great season in Portugal. And further down there, Rasmussen finishing in 10th place. And there's confirmation too. The polka dot jersey, which in this race is the points competition. In fact, it was a different colour last year because we were advertising the bid by Spain for the 2012 Olympic Games. So it was rather a horrible maroon and white jersey. At least we can. This one does stand out, although it's the wrong design for the points competition in most people's eyes. And there we are. Smiles again. He won this competition. He'll be a hard man, even for Pataki to take it off him, although there are still quite a few stages for the sprinters.
There's still a few stages left to go, and tomorrow is definitely one. There's confirmation of the classification for the points. Eric Zabel at the top there, ahead of Alejandro Valverde. It's going to be a big battle between Valverde and Zabel, because Valverde will be able to get points on the big mountain stages.
I don't think I'd like to live there, Paul, do you?
I wouldn't like to live there if I'd had a couple of drinks the night before.
The Clasificación de Montaña, we've just seen it awarded. Now they're telling us the situation. You can see it's still quite a nice buffer there for Felix Cardenas over Aitor Osa and Johan Horash. The other rider there in third place. He's also worn the jersey for a few days. Now it is the Combine prize here, and this is Valverde. He wore it today, and it looks like he's keeping it for another day because he was right up in the sprint. I think he was fourth in the end when he crossed the line, but he was having a real good go, turning out to be a very good all-round bike rider, as he now smiles at the crowd here.
Amazing thing about him, Phil, is he's only just turned 23 years of age. No wins at all last year, but this year he certainly is proving to be a factor in the Vuelta a España. His lead in that competition is not very much at all. It's just a single point, and that's the position that you are in all of the different classifications of the race. So if you're up to the top in the overall classification, you've got a very good chance of staying up to the top end of that. They used to have this classification at the Tour de France with a very strange jersey, if you remember, that Greg LeMond, in fact, won on one year.
A multicoloured Combine jersey. I always thought they'd run out of, they'd bought excess material, Bob, for all of the jerseys, so they stitched them all together and made one jersey.
It was like a quilt of all of the leaders' jerseys and all the competition. They have abandoned that in the Tour, but they've just reintroduced it in the Vuelta, and I think it's a nice competition. It's a solid indicator of who's riding consistently well. They actually gave the jersey to the wrong rider on Monday. They gave it to Nozal when Valverde had earned it outright. So today they've put that to rights. Maybe that's why we saw him so close.
When we went off air, Bob, they did call him back on stage, didn't they?
It's true. They did call him back, put him back up there on the podium. He did get his blue jersey, and that's why he was sprinting at the end of today's stage.
All right, well, as we watch here, Eric Zabel being interviewed, probably in his native language of German. We'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll continue our analysation of the end of today's stage, and we'll no doubt see the golden jersey presented to one Mr. Nozal. See you in a moment. And welcome back, and this is the new situation overall, and it's significant because Nozal keeps the lead, of course, with the same gap over González de Galdeano, but Manuel Beltran, and they may have given us a confused call when they said Heras crashed, because Beltran has finished in the second group. He has lost over a minute, and he's just about held on to third place overall. Other than that, the top 10 names are still in the same order as they were this morning. There we now have Nozel taking what is his 8th golden jersey of this year's race, and he doesn't make any mistakes, Bob, and he lets the others make the errors.
Absolutely flawless Vuelta so far for this man, Isidro Nozel, proving to be a big star for the future of cycling, getting his another golden jersey, and he's starting to look a lot more comfortable in that. I have to say, he's enjoying himself on the podiums now. He knows exactly which trophies to reach for and where to hold them up, and he's doing a great job. Unbelievable.
Well, we're looking there at a salute from the podium of Nozel. He may not know that he's actually gained time over Manuel Beltran today of more than a minute. It's turning out now that his big worry could be Dario Frigo in the time trial, because Frigo didn't lose any time and is now only 2 seconds behind Manuel Beltran in that race for 3rd place. It has not been a good day then for the US Postal Services, despite the fact that Floyd Landis and George Hincapie were in the thick of the action all day. Anyway, let's have a look again at that last 700 metres, Paul, because that was a great victory by Eric Zabel, and it was his 13th win as a pro bike rider. Take us through it.
Well, it was actually very confusing. For a moment there, with about a kilometre to go, I thought the two escapers had just done enough to survive, then it all came back together. Now, this is a very confusing moment. You can see right up at the front there in the blue jersey, Alejandro Valverde, and David Echeverria just having another little go there, but it wasn't enough. There was nothing left in his legs, and Eric Zabel, as soon as he saw that the sprint was under acceleration, he gave it everything, got the full engine burn going, and just got by Tom Boonen on the line. But what a great win for Eric Zabel, win number 2 at the Vuelta.
And 50 kilometres an hour the average today. What a stage. Zabel winning 101 miles in 3 hours 15 minutes. Boonen second, Angel Edo third, Alejandro Valverde 4th, and Gorka Gonzalez of the Euskaltel team in 5th. Let's have a look at the map then, because tomorrow the race carries on. And let's see where we go. We're heading down to Albacete now on the eve of the first, well, not the first, of the second and longest big time trial of the Tour. We'll go down from Cuenca to Albacete tomorrow. Remember, we are live with you at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's quite a long way of 168.8, but there's a change of direction, and that could mean that the wind will not be on the tails, and that makes a slight difference to the mad pace that we're facing at the moment. The big news of the day is that Manuel Beltran has lost over a minute today of his lead. He's finished in the second group, which may reveal later on he was the rider that fell and not Roberto Heras, who did make it into the lead group. But there's no doubt now that Nozel is picking up a little bit of luck along the way, and he needs it too, because he's earned everything he gets from this race. Remember to catch up with all of the latest news and stories on olntv.com, as the Vuelta Espana will continue with live coverage tomorrow. Well, that's it for today. The race continues with stage 12 tomorrow. We're on the road to Albacete. For Paul Sherwen and Bob Roll, I'm Phil Liggett saying so long until tomorrow at 9:30.